everyone. Welcome to the Town of Goffstown Select Board meeting, November 14th, 2022. Would you please all join me with Pledge of Allegiance? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First up is the acceptance and correction of the minutes from 11/7/22, public minutes. We had no other minutes for that, non-public minutes, so accept the...
I'll make a motion that we accept the 10/7/2022 public minutes as presented.
Second. Motion by Kelly, seconded by Jim. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, seeing none, motion passes. We have an announcement this evening. The Goffstown Public Library Board of Trustees and the Goffstown Public Library Foundation are holding a Once Upon a Pie baking and auction, competition and auction. And that's Saturday, November 19th, this coming Saturday, from 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Stark Hall, 3 Church Street. Bring your family and friends to enjoy a slice of pie or two at this great community event and fundraiser. Winning pies in each category will be sold to the highest bidder. The silent auction, prizes, and bid on a blue ribbon pies. Entrants, bring your pies and entry form to Stark Hall between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. Entry forms are available at the library and on the library website. There is no fee to enter the contest. Pie slices will be sold for $2 each. This event is hosted by the Goffstown Public Library Board of Trustees and the Goffstown Public Library Foundation. The foundation is a nonprofit organization formed to handle a capital campaign for building additions. Derek, you want to start?
Absolutely. Sorry we did not tab this week, but if you go to your next page, you have your committee meeting schedule for the next 2 weeks. Tomorrow night at 6 p.m. the Sewer Commission will meet in this room.
Yep.
Tuesday, Budget Committee will meet at 6 p.m. at the library.
Yep.
At Goffstown High School Library. Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. Library Trustees.
Got it.
Okay. 7 p.m. Parks and Rec Commission.
That's me.
7 p.m. Conservation.
I have that.
Okay. Thursday at 6 p.m. if needed, the Budget Committee will meet at the high school again.
Yep.
And 7 p.m. Planning Board will meet.
I have that.
Okay, and then next Monday, if necessary, the Select Board will meet on Monday. And just a reminder that town offices are closed for Thanksgiving next week.
Thursday and Friday.
Town Hall is closed Thursday and Friday. Some of the other offices are open on that Friday. So anyone watching at home should check the individual departments' websites. Next page is your consent agenda. You have 2 IT help desk technicians, successful completion of probationary period, and step increase.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second. Motion by Kelly, seconded by Mark. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion carries.
At your next page are your assessor's recommendations. You have the 2022 Equalization Municipal Assessment Data Certificate. He recommends approval of that by the board, and you have the information in your packet there, if you have any questions.
Motion to approve the assessor's recommendation and sign the 2022 Equalization Municipal Assessment Data Certificate as presented.
Second.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Kelly. Is there any discussion, questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
At your next page, you have the summary of the Glen Lake boat repair. And back in September, the board approved the mid-level repair for an estimated cost of $27,400. The Parks and Rec Director had to make a little bit of a adjustment once we found out that the reservoir was going to fill up quicker. So they got what they were able to. They were able to buy 5 planks that were limited in stock, and the total project cost for the repair was $12,730. And the request before you tonight is to do a budget transfer from admin facility repairs to that parks operations.
I'll
I'll
make
make
a-
a motion to approve the budget transfer request of $12,730 from 9030130053475, which is the admin facility repairs, to 52015064 Parks and Rec, Parks Operations.
I'll second.
Motion by Collis, seconded by Kelly. Discussion? Is that the only place you get the funds from as maintenance? There was no other place you could get it?
That actual line is a CIP line, so we felt that, but
What was budgeted in that CIP?
that was the $60,000 for the parking lot out back that we have not gone out to bid for. So I believe that that project's gonna lapse back into fund balance, and hopefully we can piggyback when DPW does the Church Street repairs in 2024.
Okay.
By the way, the work looks very good, Peter.
Yeah, it does. I went down there.
Yeah.
And the water's starting to come back up, so we should see it start to submerge a bit.
Here's a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
And the last item I have is the proposed holiday schedule for 2023 from departments. There is a 11 by 17 fold-out sheet in here. Currently, the personnel plan provides for non-union employees 10 holidays, and what you have here listed is the breakdown of town hall, fire non-union, and parks and rec, a column for police non-union, DPW non-union, and DPW transfer station. I did highlight those days that there are some differences in the gray boxes, and then also just did highlight that in 2021, the federal holiday of Juneteenth was added to the federal calendar. So just if the board wanted to make any adjustment there.
So that'll be 11 days next year?
No, right now, the department heads have proposed a schedule maintaining the 10 that are in the
Okay.
personnel plan. There would need to be an adjustment by the board if we were to add additional holidays.
Anybody? Do you want to make a motion to accept this?
I'll make a motion, we approve the 2023 proposed holiday schedule as presented.
Second.
Motion by Kelly, seconded by Mark. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes. All right, we got, let's see if, call public comment. Is there anybody here for public comment? Seeing none, we'll close that. And have Diane McCarthy come up from Crispin's House, reference to a special article request.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Got one?
Are you all set? Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for having me this evening. I am Diane McCarthy. I am the Executive Director for Crispin's House Coalition for Youth here in Goffstown. I know those of you who are here tonight, of course, are well familiar with our work. But for anybody who's watching, just a quick summary. We are, of course, your local nonprofit who advocates for our young people here in town by creating a safety net for them and providing opportunities. Our mission is to encourage and empower positive choices in the lives of our young people while helping to create a healthy and supportive community. And of course, the way we do that is through a variety of different programs. They all vary in size and scope, but at the end of the day, they all share one common denominator, and that is to provide a safety net for our local youth. As you look through the documentation that I've shared with you, there's not a lot of programming difference for us this year. I do just want to highlight that our Volunteers program is really doing some wonderful work. You might recall from last year, we've been doing Volunteers for years, but we introduced a Volunteers club specifically to the middle school, which included I have a program director for that. They were meeting once a month. They're now meeting twice a month because the kids really, really enjoyed themselves. We're also including volunteers from GHS, so they're getting their work, their volunteer hours, and all in all, it is good for everybody. I'm really proud of that. And of course, my program director, some of you may have remembered him, it's Aaron Silvestri, who came through my program since he was in 7th grade. So I'm really pleased to be able to close that circle with our kids. Other than that, of course, we run our accredited juvenile court diversion program. We have been doing that since about 1979. That is, of course, restorative justice. What is noteworthy here, you've heard me speak about it in the past, but this year the juvenile justice transformation has finally taken effect. And what that means, the RSAs have been changed, whereas juvenile court diversion was exclusively for first-time offenders. That is no longer the case. We know the data supports that the more hits a young person has on the court system as a juvenile, the higher the probability they'll be court involved as an adult. And of course, nobody wants that. So they have reworked the juvenile justice system. So now we're starting to see people maybe, come through twice. I got my first, second time through, which is interesting. It's too early to tell what that's going to mean to our program capacity in terms of demands on the program. I am seeing an uptick, but I'll keep you guys posted. For now, I am conservatively looking forward to what is coming down the pike for us regarding that program. Other than that, of course, we do our suicide prevention work and our substance misuse prevention work. Youth forums, noteworthy this year at GHS. We are having a higher participation rate this year than we have the entire tenure that I have been with Crispin's House. We've got regularly 16 to 20 kids at the table. We are, of course, trying to rebuild from COVID. That has been challenging, but I am so thrilled to have gotten that program back up from, we had graduated all of our veterans to we've got this dynamic, high energy group of people. I'm really proud of it. So you will see, from our budget here, our operating expenses are up a bit, and that is a result of two things. One is an aggressive push on our behalf for fundraising. I have introduced 2 new fundraisers, and that's what you're seeing as far as the operating expenses go. The other is responding to need. I know you all know that the pandemic did result in an uptick in needs for services, particularly in the mental health arena. So what you see is our effort, to respond to that. So I am here before you today asking your support for a warrant article in the amount of $20,000 to support the work of Crispin's House. I've included a couple quotes on the front. They're very important to me. They mean so much. But there was another one that I didn't put on, and it was at a year-end event. One of my seniors, she had been with us in 7th grade, and it was, what would you tell the new people coming through? And she ended up, she's like, Crispin's House is like duct tape. She's like, it keeps everything together, and you fill all of the gaps. She's like, and you have saved me more than we can count. And so I'm thinking, if we're being equated to duct tape, that is a compliment of the highest order. So there you have it. This is the 10th year we have requested this warrant article, and historically, every year we have received overwhelming support that has increased each year, at least in the last 7 that I've been looking closely. We are very grateful, of course, last year we had the Select Board's unanimous recommendation, and we are very appreciative of that, and we hope that we may be able to enjoy that again.
Thank you. Anybody got any questions? Kelly?
Thank you. Hi, Diane.
Hi.
So historically, we've gotten a breakout of finances and costs and things like that. And I do see this pie chart that you've included in your presentation, but I just want to confirm that the support and revenue is equal to the operating expenses, and that includes this $20,000. Is that correct?
Did I not include that? Did I not say that
No,
correctly?
you did. You did.
Okay, yes,
I'm
no,
just
that is.
confirming, since we don't have that historical sheet.
Oh,
that's-
too funny. No, no,
we're
no, no.
matching
Yes,
up.
of
Okay,
course.
Great, thank you.
All set? Anybody else? All set?
Good work,
Right,
thank you.
Yep, keep
Thank
up the
you.
good work, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank
It's
you,
my
Diane.
my honor to do it, for sure. Thank you.
Okay, we'll start with department head budget deliberations. You have,
Yep, we have some updates. Bringing these out of some of the adjustments and corrections that have been made.
Danielle, can you come up to the front too, and that way I have questions we can,
Guess we just pass them down the road, right?
There should only be one each. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
thank you. Only one, right? So,
So the department heads met this week, went through lines, and what you have before you are individual lines that have been corrected based on additional information that the department heads have received, with some reductions in auditing services, in the police contracted services, and in police employee development, and then there was one item in the solid waste that was left out of the department, so that's been added back in, but that's a reduction of $15,300. And then Danielle reviewed the revenues one more time, and we're anticipating the investment revenues have increased over the last few months, so she's made an adjustment there. And we've also included increased meals and rooms, as well as some additional revenues from federal grants for the police. And then the NHRS 7% for Group 2 retirees from the state was actually received this year, so we took that out. But overall, the change is, again, a decrease of $15,300 on the expenses, and then an increase in the revenue of $335,000 for just an adjustment of $350,300.
and that equates to what kind of a percentage of an increase?
What's our baseline? What are we comparing against?
Well, you had a number that you said was, what, 12% or something?
Yeah, and I think I probably shouldn't have been so quick off the cuff with that. So it's again, that's where I asked, and it is a loaded question. What are we comparing against? Because right now, the budget, once you, let's see, your appropriation is when you discount the purchase of the fire engine. Treat that as a one-time purchase at an offsetting revenue of capital reserve fund last year. Your increase right now in the budget is about $800,000 in general fund appropriation. So, you know, is that your baseline? Because at the same time, we see our revenues going down next year.
Well, you just showed us here, we're getting increase in revenue, so these are all
Those are
decreases?
increased to the revenues, but it's still a decrease of what we're predicting for 2023 versus 2022.
Okay. So, when we asked the department heads to go through and look at where they could cut, out of all the funds that have been, all the monies that we've looked at the budget, we only managed to cut $15,300.
Without changing services, I think we could have a discussion about changing services. I think at least when you look at my budget, I had a new proposed position. I had a new proposed website. I think I was very clear on what I laid out on what are the new things out there and what are those costs. So, as department heads, I think we've advocated for what we feel is the appropriate budget, and we've highlighted where we've made changes.
And as you should, and as keepers of the budget, more or less, or, control of the budget, we have to say yay or nay on maybe some of the new things. And you got a new personnel, the police has a new personnel, there's a shift in fire and what they're doing there too. DPW's looking at putting solar power in. I mean, these are all new things that we need to take a look at, I think, on basis. Kelly, I know you had some questions last time.
I have some ideas, if that's the point where we're at, about ways that we can make an impact, but just for clarification, Derek, what would be the total operating budget given this? These changes?
Including just general fund, or?
On the town budget summary, that has everything, the operating budget? Is that included?
That includes sewer and also ambulance.
So the operating budget article includes sewer, it includes EMS, and then we follow that up with an article immediately thereafter to appropriate from the EMS article, thereby reducing the operating budget. So
Because we're not just subtracting 350,300 out of this 27,372, 290.
So that $350,000 represents a reduction from the last time we met in the gap between your appropriation and your revenue. So that's, I guess, from where we were last time, a change on how much would have to be collected.
So where are we at proposed budget number? Do we have a number?
25. You're talking just the general fund. 25,095,400.
And the reason it is that is because that does not include the $250,000 deposit into the capital reserve fund, which is a special article. And it also does not include the bond that the library trustees have requested.
Right.
So what was that number again, Daniel? We're at general fund total, is that the number we're looking at?
Yes.
Where it says 25,110,700.
Right, and now it's 25,095,400.
Because again, we only reduced that by $15,300.
Right. Now, how much is in this police reserve fund?
About 42,000.
It was 50-something thousand earlier this year.
No, that's the amount that's
Not seeking.
flexible. That's not the money that must remain in the account at all times. The seed, the starter fund monies.
Stays in there? Okay.
Yeah.
So why can't we buy a cruiser out of there?
So I believe the cruisers are more than that. Chief, I'm not sure. I'd have to double check the
I
individual
think
line
we
because there's
budgeted
three.
$180,000, so.
Right.
Right now in the budget is 3 cruisers at $180,000, so $60,000 each.
Yeah.
I
So
So-
thought they were in there for 40,000, 45,000.
43, I thought. 43, 45.
Yeah, I have to go back and CIP and look, but it was 43.
So they may have been in CIP for that amount, but where they are in the budget, let me pull.
Trying to find that line. Hold on, I got it right here.
So there's $70,000 sitting in that account right now, right?
Yes,
Okay,
roughly, yeah.
roughly.
Well, it's 42, yeah.
And we've got some outstanding coming in.
Yes, there's things that have been billed out through payroll in the last week or two.
And how much are you expecting to come in? With all the details we've had lately over the,
We don't
I'd have
have
to
what's,
look
but
at
I think
the
there's
revenue.
generally a lag in what we get in for receivables. And as we get into the political calendar, that lag increases even more because you may not be billing St. Anselm, you're billing a political candidate's.
okay, we're not talking about buying a car tomorrow. We're talking a car probably not until June or July before we're able to get them.
Yep.
And that fund probably would be increased enough to cover the cost of a vehicle with what's outstanding right now.
I can pull up the revenue or the receivables pending. I don't believe it's that much, but I will definitely take a look. I don't know off the top of my head because I didn't do the billing.
You just can't let $70,000 just keep sitting there waiting. We have an opportunity to use it towards the budget, we should be using it, especially on the police department.
Does that line also pay wages?
Yes,
It does.
the revolving fund pays the wages and required benefits anytime, and then it's offset from the fees that are charged to the vendor.
My point is, we bill for a car. When we bill out, we also include the cost of a cruiser or two. Is that correct?
Yes, when a cruiser is required, there is a charge for that.
Derek, on the question I
Just found
sent
it here.
earlier today, did we get an answer back from Manchester Police?
It's not on the budget, it's in the presentation.
Police chief is
Oh, yeah.
coming up and
So, just looking at the current receivables account, there's 15,000 pending that's due to the fund. However, over 8,000 of that is still pending from last year. So it's a rolling amount. So we're constantly sending out statements and following up to see what's outstanding. So we started the year with 8,000, so I think it'd be safe to say that of the 15, only about half of it would be in by the start of the year.
And are those from the candidates that came into town and we're waiting for that money to come in?
So far, I mean, there's a mix. I'm seeing there's St. Anselm, Consolidated Communications, Goffstown High School were a couple minor ones. JCR Construction came in, so it depends. There's some Eversource mixed in there as well.
But some from last year?
Well, at the beginning of the year, what I meant is it started with 8,000 that hadn't been paid by the end of the year, so it rolled forward because it was still pending as our receivable. That was our opening balance, and then we continued to receive against it and then continue to bill as things occurred. So it's just a snapshot in time.
we'd
So
have to do an aging report to see
exactly
how
what's
much is out,
outstanding. Yeah.
outstanding.
Kelly Chesum?
No.
Oh, Selectman Lemay, I think the police chief had an answer to your question. But if you could, if the chair will allow it, repeat your question, so.
Earlier this morning, Peter, I was looking at the budget and I asked Derek to check with Manchester to see what length, how long they keep their cars, in service, their frontline cars. And the response was, I would get an answer tonight, hopefully, if all goes well. And if that's okay.
Did you get an answer?
So,
So just police chief to police chief?
This is our fleet maintenance lieutenant to fleet maintenance supervisor at Manchester.
Go ahead.
So the city, what they do is they do a couple things differently, but essentially their marked cars, their frontline cars that they use for patrol, they keep them on the line for 3 to 4 years, or about 100,000 miles. From there, they keep them as what we call support or backup. That's different than what we do, where we make them unmarked. So those support and backup cars then go to their SROs. They go to their community policing units. They go all over the city. They go to the, mountain bike crew. So once they come off the line at 100,000 off of patrol, they go to support, and they keep them there for anywhere from 2 to 4, or maybe about 60,000 miles. So in total, they're averaging their cars, their marked cars, for 6 to 8 years and anywhere to up to no more than 160,000. Now, they also said that during this time, when they have 3 or 4 or 5 cars that go down to be fixed, they also have more cars to put into patrol to help out with. On the other side of it, they don't go and put these support cars, these marked cars, de-stripe them, and then put them into a staff car like we do our detectives. They buy their detectives' cars right out, and they keep them from anywhere from 60,000 to 80,000, roughly 8 to 10 years. Now, I also
That said,
got
Yeah,
another thing that my wonderful executive secretary has taken care of me, and she reached out all over the state, and they sent out this list that I could probably get to you guys, but essentially, there's maybe 15, 20 agencies here where they talk about how many officers they have versus how many cruisers versus cruiser model versus age they retire out, approximately the age that they retire out, if they buy them or lease them, and how the town pays for them. And just in a really quick snapshot, you have a place like Hooksett that's comparable to us, where they have 30 officers, 11 cruisers, they keep them for 100,000 miles, roughly 7 years, they buy them out town funded. Then you have like a place like maybe like Kingston, East Kingston, that has 5 officers, 5 cruisers, Dodge Charger, 110,000 miles, half detail fund, half town. They have Hampton Falls, 5 officers, 4 cruisers, 110,000 miles, depending on 8 years. Rochester, this is a weird one, 65 officers, 10 cars, 4 years, 110,000. If you look through this list, you'll see a common thread. It's 100 to 120,000 miles, anywhere from 4 to 8.
yeah, that's
From
the
6 to 8 years.
common denominator I'm seeing.
When I'm looking at this and looking at what Manchester does, what I'm seeing, and this is my perspective, but obviously, you know, we're kind of right there. We're doing ours just about 6 years, 7 depending on where we're at, and then, so we do 3 years on the line, marked cruisers, then they go unmarked for 3 years, depending, unless the transmission's falling out of them or something of that nature, and then we send them over to DBW and wish Adam and his crew luck with them as they go on for the next however many years into the abyss. But we've been averaging 6 years historically where our cars have been pretty successful that way.
So
And it
we're
seems
in-
like
we're in the ballpark.
we're fairly close, yep.
and how many miles? About 100?
We have, yeah, so right now, as of September, we have 4 cars that have, as of September, we had one with 105, one with 104, one with 112, one with 104, and one with 95. And then the engine hours are 13,000, 12,000, 11,000, and then 10,000, and another one that's got 71,000 with 11,000 hours. And remember, again, the industry standard is for every engine hour is 33 miles. So I think what we're seeing is as we're aging out, our cars that are coming off the line at that 6-year mark is just about 112, 104, 104, 105, plus 10,000 plus engine hours. So we're pretty much in the ballpark compared to everybody else around us.
Good.
Thank you for the
That
information.
answers your question.
Yep, thank you, Chief.
You're welcome. Should I stick around, Mr. Chair, or?
You can if you want, but I'm still gonna harp on on buying one car out of that fund instead of having $70,000 sitting there. It makes absolutely no sense to me. I understand the situation, you have the seed money to still work off of, so I'm saying that we divert one car from your budget and take it out of that fund.
So if I can just clarify the question before, or the ask was, what we had for a quote for next year was $45,000 per cruiser, plus we're running anywhere between 15-ish thousand for striping and outfitting it out. That's what we're getting right now.
Okay?
Again, as I came to you guys in the last few months, we had state bid at 32,000 that got canceled. We were lucky to secure a couple cars at 35, but those 23s were quoted at 45,000 to start.
So you buy the car and you get the paraphernalia on the budget. I mean,
Sure. That's just the breakup of how we're buying the car
Understand.
for 45-ish, and then it's right around 15,000-ish to outfit it. So you're about 60 grand for next year.
we just increased the amount of what we're gonna hold back at an unreserved fund balance. I don't understand, we can't just keep holding back in different places. I really think that that fund should be used for what it's purpose was to pay for a vehicle and personnel. So, I'm gonna make that a motion, that we take the $45,000 out of that police special fund and decrease the budget, operating budget by that. Take it out of that fund, go ahead.
45? I'm sorry,
Oh, go ahead.
45 or 60, Peter?
No, 45, and you can buy the other stuff out of the,
The striping?
yeah, buy that out of the regular budget.
Can I just ask, I don't disagree with that at all, but I just want to make sure we have funds in there to cover the benefits and wages.
You have $70,000 in there, you have $30,000, which is a seed fund, okay, to cover,
Right, but we're
You're-
still waiting on funds.
yes, but you have $70,000 in seed money in there, right? That's float money.
Yep. I just want to make sure that that will cover what we need to cover if those funds we're waiting on don't come in. Are we going to put ourselves in a bad situation for?
It depends on when we purchase the vehicle.
Okay.
The other thing I'd like to explore would be using it as an offsetting revenue, especially since the cost of the vehicle coming out of that fund at 60 plus per vehicle wouldn't be something the fund could sustain every year, possibly every other year or a partial payment perhaps. So I'd like to explore the option of offsetting revenue from the fund as an interfund transfer because it's being used on a qualifying purchase from the general fund rather than dropping it from the budget entirely, because if we drop it from the budget, then we're impacting potentially the default calculations.
For next year.
I get it.
I see what you're saying, yeah.
So it would have the same
So you're
impact.
gonna, same impact, you would
Right.
use $45,000 of that fund to offset,
Part of the purchase.
right, I would go for that. As long as you're using the money, it's just not, it continues to sit there.
Yeah, me too.
I'll second.
Go ahead.
So the 45,000, chief, passes the sniff test for me. What's the $15,000 get us?
So-
Upfitting it, which includes?
That includes the lights, the siren, all the computer equipment. It includes the cage that goes in the back, all the equipment that goes in the back. And then there's about $2,000 that Sousa does for us for striping, do all the decals, which I think is still a donation, because I don't know how they're charging us that amount.
So it's basically everything that's permanently affixed to the vehicle?
Yes.
Can't be removed, it's bolted in, if you will.
Yes, and it does get removed when we take that car off the line and put it into the staff car.
Understood.
They pull the lights, the striping off, and then they minimize it, and then it runs for 3 years like
So when you how reusable are those? Does the technology change on those fast enough so that you have
Yes.
to throw them away at some point?
So this is the question that Selectman Lemay asks me frequently is, we were trying to recycle the cages, the light bar, those bigger cost items. The problem is when we find that, I know I keep harping on this, but when we buy cages and light bars that fit a car, and I'll just use a number, that's 10 feet wide, and then Ford manufactures a car that now is 10.6. That light bar does not fit on that car, and if it does, it's gonna look like this, and then the cage has to be retrofitted to fit into that car that's not as wide anymore. So as we're moving forward, we're buying new technology, but now we're finding that the technology is not just fitting the car, but it has different sensors. So at night, it's not the old light bar that blinds you when you're driving by. The officers can dim it, so it's a little bit less intense at night. So there's just different technologies, and at the end of that 3-year cycle, we're hoping that we can grab some of these light bars and put them on the newer cars, but we're still trying to get rid of the pre-2020 car. And the question becomes, what happens in 2023, 2024? Does Ford now manufacture a car with a different size again? So that's what we're up against. This year, we're gonna try to do a half cage in one of our cruisers. So instead of it going across the whole entire car, it's gonna be just one side of the car. Price difference is negligible, maybe like $100. But the idea there is maybe it doesn't really require the width of the car. It's more of just, and officer comfort. So now the officer can actually push, the tall officers can actually fit, where they're not, because the cage is right behind them. So we're gonna try that in one car and see how it works for us. Because not very often are we transporting multiple people in a cruiser when they're prisoners.
Thanks, I appreciate that. I
Yep.
mean, as we get older, our clothes don't always fit anymore, so we have to.
Yes, sir.
So they always used to change neckties, they go from skinny to wide
Yeah.
and then to skinny, so you have to
And
buy
now they
new
don't
ones.
even wear them anymore.
Back in the day.
All right, so I made a motion.
Seconded.
My motion,
Yeah.
yeah, you seconded it. I guess we have to change the motion, if, with that, it would be used, $45,000 out of the fund would be used offsetting revenue towards police cars. You second that, Jim?
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes. Next, Kelly, did you have something else?
So I had on here the Grassmere project.
Uh-huh.
So that was a question that I wanted to propose to the board, and maybe Derek, who sits on that board, is what is the feasibility of that elevator project moving forward?
In 2018 or 2019, the HCC worked with the architect of record to walk through the building again and look at existing code. At that time, it was estimated that the cost of the elevator addition would run about $500,000 to $550,000. We have $375,000 in the capital reserve fund that has been deposited over the years at town meetings. So the balance would need to be either capital donation campaign or working to secure grants. The HTC has been meeting, and they, and Mark, our Selectman Lemay, you can correct me, but they anticipate applying for an LCHIP grant
Correct.
in the spring. They are currently, we've been reaching out to the architect of record to see if we can get updated numbers, because again, those are 2019 numbers.
Okay. And
I'm sorry, the 550,000 are old numbers from 2019?
Yes,
Thank you.
so we don't know what the cost of an elevator would be today.
correct.
Yeah.
As it was previously designed.
We'd have to bring the architect back in, Kelly, and he would have to look over the design, and as you know, everything else has gone up in prices
Right.
today. We would make an adjustment as seen.
It's just one project that I've been thinking about, because the purpose of the elevator was to make that building accessible. And although it was something voted on, I'm wondering if we should bring it back up to be voted on again, if it's something we should move forward with, thinking about after COVID and the potential use of that room. I've just been trying to think of projects and ideas that have changed over time that we're still talking about, and that's one of them. And I know people probably have strong feelings, but it was just something that I had on my list of things to chat about.
Peter, so the goal, as it was to get that building to a point where it can start generating revenue. Will this
Correct.
do that? Will this take us across the finish line? Or we can start?
Most definitely.
This is the last
Derek.
item?
Well,
What do we mean revenue?
it can still
Well-
generate revenue.
Well, I understand,
And just, you
but
can't have any
more-
public meetings in it.
more revenue. Let's not
You
change
can't
that.
have any public meetings in it
I
because you don't have.
understand, but
ADA to get to the
Right,
second
yeah.
floor.
But if
Right.
somebody wanted to, hold something upstairs without having elevator access, I mean, they very well could rent it out. We just don't push it very often, do we, Derek?
No, we
get many
do.
requests for it?
Yes, we do. Yep, we have a handful that use the bottom, the Knights of Columbus room. But we have had groups use the upstairs and have generated but it's very meager. I mean, you're talking a few $100s a couple times a year.
So with the addition of an elevator, would that greatly increase the revenue? Has there
The
been-
Historic District Commission has never commissioned a study, and I'd only be, guessing on what the answer to that is. I don't know.
That's hard to tell.
Yeah, no,
But the thing is, some of the discussion was, at the time, when we were talking about this elevator, was that if you had an elevator, you could use it for more
right.
budget committee meetings or anything like that, if
The
you
building would be more marketable, if
Right.
you will. Has the
would be able
potential
to use it for public
potential to
meetings.
generate additional
Right.
revenues.
And the other good thing Derek was talking about it, get the fiber optic now going by there. It's going up to Station 17, we can, for a price, put fiber into the building, and I mean, we can have an addition, it makes meetings much better with having that. Right now, for GTV to bring stuff in, it's, you know, it's a job. If you get the cable there, everything right there, you can set it all up and you'd have access to it pretty easy.
So the anticipated, we don't know the anticipated cost, but it will most likely be over $1 million, or $500,000.
Oh, yeah.
It's over-
Yeah.
6.
It's over there.
So is there any estimate how long it's gonna take them to raise the balance?
No, they have not done the work to do that.
So it could be a couple of years?
Or it could be an LCHIP grant that makes up that entire amount. The last time we were fortunate enough to get an LCHIP grant, I think it was about $100,000 project, and more than half of that was LCHIP funds. So it depends on what's available in LCHIP and what you're seeing for projects. That'd be the most likely source for a one-time grant to get it. Otherwise, there's not a lot out there for activities.
Anybody else, questions? You? I have some questions on the fire department that I'd like to, she gave us our presentation, but there's a couple of things I'd like to just cover with the chief, just for my own.
4. Going after the specific line.
Yeah, I'm gonna start with the
Oh,
wage lines,
okay.
just I just wanna go over again how we move things around. So, the 22 budget, I'll wait for the chief to ready. Got his big ruler, he's good. Pencil. You brought the wrong color pencil there.
Why, should it be red? Okay, Mr. Chairman.
So, can we just go through your wage lines and how you switch stuff around there?
Yes. So, what we did was, we took, since EMS is the greater part of what we're doing now, we took some EMS overtime, fire overtime money and moved it over into the EMS enterprise account. Working with Danielle, we took a look at that account to make sure we weren't over expending it. So that's where we ended up with that.
Okay, so 22 you budgeted, we're gonna start at the top. Regular full-time was budgeted at 95,711, and now it's 132,869. Is that a result of grants falling off?
What line was that?
The very first line.
Oh, the regular wages?
41,100 regular wages, full-time.
No,
Are you in fire or fire EMS?
just wanna make sure I'm on the right page.
Fire ops?
Are you in,
Ops.
I'm in fire. It's in fire, isn't it?
does it say in the upper left corner, does it say 42150, fire/EMS?
Yep.
Okay, so you're in the EMS
Yeah, I'm
fund.
in the EMS, I'm sorry, yeah.
Okay.
I was on fire ops.
41,100 in EMS.
Okay, so regular wages,
So can you repeat your question, because I think I have an answer.
Okay, in 2022, it was 95,711 this
Yep.
year, right?
Yep.
And now it's gone up to 132,869. But we also budgeted regular wages part-time, it looks like, at 81, but we've only spent 21. So we reduced that to 41. Did we move some of that around? What took it from 95,711 to 132,869?
so that's increasing because we're trying to put more onto the EMS fund. So we were previously not funding any of our full-time staff wages out of the EMS fund until last year.
So you see in 2021, there were no funds
Right.
budgeted, yep.
Then in 2021, we started moving 5% of the full-time floor staff, or union staff, I should say, and that did not include any of the safer folks. So it was 95% from the general fund and 5% from EMS, but only for the individuals who are not grant funded. Because we had to keep all the grant
Right, I
funds
get that
and
part.
expenses in the general fund. So this year, 4 of those 8 their grant has ended, so now a percentage of their wages is moving into the EMS fund.
Okay, and then on the next line down, we budgeted 81,209. We've only spent 21,872, and then we went 41. So we've cut that line almost in half for now. And that is for what reason? Same reason?
Chief, that was a change to the part-time wage line.
Yes.
That was a change that you had requested.
So when you looked at the numbers we were carrying for part-timers last year, we're down to about 10 of them. But I left enough money in there so I can hire some more per diem, so that's why it's lower.
Okay, and then when I see the overtime pay, it's gone up to 43,571. Does that go to those 2 lines? Or does that just go to the fire line? The full-time line?
That would be anybody that qualifies for an overtime shift. So I'm not sure how the department plans to separate. We've never had overtime hit that fund. So I'm not sure, do they identify by shift if it was an EMS overtime run or?
Yes,
Okay,
we can identify whether it's a overtime shift to cover, sick, vacation, whether it's covering any of the EMS.
And going down to retirement fire. That was budgeted at 33, we only spent 19. Danielle's probably one of your answers for you.
mm-hmm.
Does that pay at the end of the year?
For retirement, no, that has to do with how many people are charged to that line and whether or not they're retirement eligible. So just to go back for a second, I want to make a correction. I had said 95 and 5. It's 90-10 is the share. 90% general fund, 10% EMS.
Okay.
So the 10% of wages that hit that EMS fund are subject to New Hampshire retirement. So that comes out each payroll in tandem with the amount being spent. So it goes up next year based on the number of full-time hours we're anticipating. It has to essentially match that regular wages full-time line, that 41100 line. You said retirement?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep, so it's a percentage of that.
But the retirement didn't go down in the full-time line, which it should be if you're moving it over, shouldn't it?
I'm sorry, what do you mean in the full-time line?
If I go to fire operations,
Okay,
okay?
I see what you're saying, the
and
general
look at
fund side.
retirement,
Yeah.
it doesn't move over equally. I mean, that stayed pretty much the same.
Right, so when we do the calculations, we break out the 10%, the 90 and the 10%, and we do that as a percentage, and then in addition to that, what's also in that retirement line is gonna be any details or percentage of, because there's EMS details and there's fire details, so each of them are gonna have a percentage of details predicted, and that's also gonna be a retirement, some of it may be retirement eligible, depending on who takes the detail. So we tend to average it, and we have to add in if there's special duty, details, special details, as well as a percentage of overtime that would be subject to retirement. So we do pay retirement on all full-time overtime, but if a part-time person perhaps had enough to earn overtime wages in a pay period, we wouldn't be paying retirement for that non-benefited position.
Okay, but it still doesn't answer my question. It doesn't look like what you moved over, the 50-something thousand dollars or an extra, I don't know, 24,000, 25,000. Would a retirement have gone up that much in 42,500?
I'm just looking at the detail sheets and
Oh,
how we
okay.
calculated it. So,
All right, I mean, I think you understand my question.
yeah, so we have 617,000, well, 618,000 in fire retirement and just shy of 60 in the
Well, my book
EMS.
says 622,489 for 2023.
Right, I was looking at the base for,
Oh, okay.
for just the wages associated.
So, when you look at the EMS fund, it says retirement fire. Is that really retirement fire? Or is that retirement because of 10%? All right,
Yes, yeah, it's the 10%. The reason it says fire is that designation tells us that it's a group 2 calculation. A fire has a different rate than a group 2 police versus a non-union. So if you look in the fire operations lines, you're gonna see 2 different retirements. One will be just retirement, and that's for your non-union group 1 employees, and then the fire retirement is
that
for
went up
those.
minimal. But
Yeah.
the other ones, these other ones have gone up quite a bit.
So if you look at the regular wages that's split between the general fund and the EMS fund, they went up the same percentage as the retirement in the general fund and the EMS fund. So they're increasing at the same rate, so those numbers do make sense.
All right. And then employee development. We've only spent $400 this year. Is that the one, do you anticipate somebody going to a class, or,
Is that the paramedic?
Paramedic,
Yep,
yeah,
it's
a
paramedic
paramedic.
school.
and do we have somebody that's interested this year?
We do. We actually have 2. One out of this year's budget and another one in January.
So that'll be closer to expended at the end of the year,
Yes.
so.
Expended at the end of next year, right?
No, you've got one that's already started.
Got one
One's already started?
started.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're just waiting for the bill.
Operating supplies have gone from 16,160 up to 23,000. You've only spent 3,600 year-to-date.
Which line is that?
That is 47,120, fire operations.
Yeah. 47. So those are the funds for the cost to maintain and operate our fire equipment within the department and to repair and replace.
You must have something specifically targeted if you're gonna
Yeah, we-
increase it by that amount of money.
We put in for 12 LED, they call them Vulcan lights. They're handheld flashlights. And one Quiche Secure replacement, that's the little vault that attaches to the truck. If you recall, we applied for a grant, but we haven't heard on it yet. But we will need to replace one. So that is $3,800 increase. That's what brought that up. Basically, I did add some other tools and equipment too for, it's basically, you know how we have below grade rescue and they have these metal tripods? So we bought some accessory tools like a tripod head some harnesses and things like that.
I think what I'm trying to get at is a lot of little stuff in here is adding up, and that's why our budget is kind of gone up. Now, I would like to go over to, what is this? We're still in fire. And I think I know the answer to this. Where is it? Right here. Alarm repairs and maintenance. We haven't spent anything. We budgeted 8,100 in 2021, and we spent approximately 4,500. We budgeted 9,375 this year. Year-to-date, we spent 674.40. And now we're budgeting again at 9,375. Is there a project or something that you have planned?
So this is the fire alarm system, right, throughout the town, the pole boxes and everything. And matter of fact, we've got the contractor coming in Monday. They're gonna replace some fire alarm cable. They have to put a lightning arrestor up on by Mountain View Middle School. So that work is definitely being done and will be used by the end of the year. We typically like to hold on to it just in case something gets knocked down or, you know, there's a major repair during the year. And then we save, we wait till the end of the year to do the system maintenance on it.
All right, I think we got that one. We got this one here was physical exams. Is $10,825. Historically, we've never spent close to that. This is on EMS.
What line?
It's 44,330.
Yeah, that's for 10 members at $510 each. 6 new members at $850. There's a stress test, and then we have some fitness for duty exams.
Is this for the whole department or just for EMS?
This is for EMS, part-time EMS people. I could probably drop it to 5 members,
I mean, you're only talking,
2,500.
so what would you say you'd recommend that doing that one to? You thought you could?
Drop it down to 5 members at $510 each, so
2,500 bucks.
yep.
Everybody okay with that, or?
Yeah.
Huh? Mark?
Yeah, it's fine.
I have one on this budget.
Go ahead.
Chief, on page 11 of 26,
11?
yep, of fire,
On the fire budget.
line
Oh, yeah.
41,300, overtime.
I'm sorry, which line again?
41,300, overtime.
Yes.
So looking at the trends, do you know where we're at year-to-date right now? Do you have any idea? Is that easy to pull
I'm sorry, Ken, yes, 45, what was the last three?
up? 41,300, overtime for fire.
I am overspent right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was looking at the trends in budget, I know 2021, we had a huge year, but then we dropped the budget and we're below that now, so.
Yeah, and in fire operations, we're at 201 spent
So we overspent
201,000.
that line by 25,000.
By
already,
30,000 already.
26,000.
And with the 5 vacancies, we'll be hitting that again too.
So you think almost a $50,000 increase is where we're gonna land for next year?
Yes.
We don't find anybody.
Okay.
So, just as a general, you've budgeted for a full staff, and you've also budgeted heavy on the overtime in case you don't have a full staff. Would that be accurate?
Partly, the overtime budgeting that I did was just trying to bring us closer to what we've been routinely spending over the last couple of years.
We've never been
But
full
I-
staff.
I didn't run any numbers, you know, for the 5 vacancies,
Right.
thinking it's gonna be vacant for this long.
Right. And the last one I got is 53,475 in the general, which was facilities repair for 42,000. 43,000.
Yes,
Is
25,000.
that the paving?
25,000 of that is to pave and build a swale in the back to take care of the drainage problems. And that was based on the town engineer's,
Estimate?
yeah. And what we're gonna try and do is, they're gonna pave Church Street. So he's gonna work with the paving company to have them, you know, swing in and do that while they're doing Church Street too.
Is that definitely gonna happen next year?
If I get the funding for it, I'll make sure.
No, I'm talking about Church Street.
That would be the goal, keep it in schedule for 24. Yeah,
Yeah, but working on 23, not 24.
that's right.
Well,
Good
got
catch.
crickets out here, what's going on? One's budgeted in 23 and the other one says we might get done for 24.
But that, even if I put the money in for it, it could still be done. It was just that we're gonna try and do it while they're on Church Street.
There's some prep work that you need in drainage over there too, so.
I'm spending, Mr. Chairman, I already spent $1,500 this year for the knit pack in the back of the stations. And the trucks just come along and, you know, I got potholes and everything. So this would be the solution to it.
So you may not be waiting till do Church Street, you may do it on your own.
Yes.
All right. But if it doesn't get done and you wait till Church Street, that money will have to be encumbered.
My goal would
Is that- is
my
that-
goal would be
Yes.
to have it done this year, this next fiscal year.
Okay, anybody else? Okay?
No.
I think we got it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone need a pencil?
Ask Rick about the pools.
Huh?
I said, well, you can call Rick up. So he can
Rick's
ask about
next.
the pools.
Come on up, Rick. Go ahead, you have a question?
Yes. Rick, so I wanted to get your thoughts on, so we've been hearing the maintenance issues with the pools and the one that has the drainage issue underneath, or the leaking issue
They
underneath.
both have leaking issues, but yeah.
Yeah. What, if you can, anticipate next year, what are we looking like for maintenance? Like, basically where I'm at is trying to come up with ideas for things. Would it make sense for us to close one of those pools until we can get the funding to do it over? Like, is it worth it for us to keep it open based on usage versus cost of staff and maintenance? Or do we circulate everyone to one pool in the community and save that money? That being said, I don't know what that cost is per pool. Is that something that's even worth talking about? That was a lot of questions at you at once, I know, but that's what
No,
my thought
it's
was.
it's an excellent question. It's very logical.
Mm-hmm.
And forethought. I like that forethought thinking. I think we could go with one pool. I mean, eventually, I think we should have one pool anyhow. The cost savings is gonna be more in your chemicals, in your water usage, you know, right there.
Employees, you wouldn't need as many employees.
I disagree with that. You might lose maybe 2 of those positions, but not a full, you know what I mean? You're still gonna need some staffing to do that. Because now you might have a little more uptick in volume at one pool, so you're gonna grab some of those guards to come over, and you can position them better on the deck, that kind of thing. So you might save 2 positions, 2, 3, couple, 2, 3. Other than that, you might save, let's say maybe, and this is to pick, you know, probably $2,500 and, you know, $3,000 in chemicals, that kind of thing.
So what would you say, if you could give me a ballpark, what's the operating cost per pool?
$16,000 to run 2 pools, right here. $16,582.
And that's operation,
That's
electricity?
no salaries, that's no salaries. Salaries are built in, up into their part-time wages.
So that being said, the operations for 2023 is at 19,285.
Right.
And that's operations, and the chemicals are not in that, right?
In
Or
the
are they?
pool operation, all the chemicals, everything in there, yes.
Okay.
Water's not in there.
What do you think water per year?
Electric too, you're gonna lose some money in, well, you, excuse me, you'll cut down in electric.
What do you think ballpark water and electric per pool? I know, I didn't prep you for
Ballpark, I
this.
hate going ballpark, because then when you
I
say it,
know.
it's like you're on the hook for it, you know, it's like, oh my head. I would say water, if you close down the Roy pool, $395 to fill it, and then it's probably another, say $1,000 total for water. Electricity, I wouldn't have a clue. I'd have to
okay.
really look at that. Electricity, call it another grand maybe, so let's say $2,000. Don't hold me to these numbers. 'cause
No,
I-
I know. I didn't give you a chance to prep either. So that's my fault.
So, Peter, if I could ask a question on that.
Go ahead.
Is that even practical, Rick? I mean, can we run programs and meet expectations with one pool, or are we just talking about something that, you know?
You have to change your our program offering, because right now, currently what we do is we use the 2 parks for our day camps. So you have, you know, the Roy Park, you get about 25, 30 kids that go to that facility, all right? And then you get 60, 65 that will go over to Barnard. In order to really run these camps successfully, a pool is quite important for that to be a good program, to offer a good program. So if you did close, and down the road, if we do make that change, and I do agree that we should eventually close a pool down, you're gonna move everybody over to one park.
Right.
And my opinion is you move it over to Barnard Park. Nothing to do with us and them, it's about geographical space and what you have to offer. You can do more there. To do all that, and with the preparation of this budget process in 2023, be a little close, but I think we could pull something off. 2024, I think we can start to wean ourselves into that pattern, per se. And I think 2025, you're gonna definitely have to run something like that. You're gonna have one part, one playground program. But it's a weaning process. I don't know if you wanna go cold turkey and say, boom, you know, 2023, here we go, all in.
Well, that's why I asked the question, Rick, because based on that quick math, we're talking about
It's not,
$16,000 to run one pool for one season, not including wages. So I don't know.
the 16 grand is to run 2 pools.
Well, no, pool operations, you have you have 19,000.
$19,285.
Right, and then with water and electricity,
Yeah.
and then plus wages. So I'm guessing, based
yeah.
on that. So that's why I asked, is that even a discussion that is worth having? Is the
I think-
cost
I
that we're paying for that plus usage, like you mentioned, camps,
Yeah.
the maintenance repairs that we're making on the fact that the pool is literally draining water.
Mhm.
Is that a discussion that we could have for 2023? That's what I was kind of getting at, is I didn't know how much it actually was costing us and how much we were paying for those issues or
Right.
deficiencies those both of the pools have.
I mean, being on the spot at this moment to give you
I know.
a viable answer, I think, as I said, I think a weaning process by 2025, that kind of it does make sense to me. To do it all in 2023, I don't think it's quite appropriate yet. But the usage, I do believe and have been seeing the usage, participation usage, going down at the Roy Pool and at Barnard. It's been pretty steady, if not a little uptick here and there. But I have been seeing the usage go down.
At Roy?
Yes. But it's an integral, a pool is an integral piece for your day camp program.
Yeah, I feel like that's
Because
where it would make the biggest impact.
They live in the water. Because the other thing too is what we experimented with COVID there, and we did the tent. We bought that tent and we put the kids underneath the tent for inclement weather. It worked, you know what I mean? So we have a model in place to shift maybe the higher volume over to a park. So, you know, we do have some mechanisms in place to take a little more volume, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, thank you, that does make sense. I just also wasn't sure with the closing of it for the season, if you saw any more significant. We've kind of been guessing on the impact that usage has had on the pool itself. So if you were like, this kind of a crapshoot, if next year it will work appropriately, you know, that
Right.
changes the conversation. So, like I said, I just wanted to pick your brain. I know I didn't give you any time to prep, but that's kind of where I was going with that one, so thank you.
And the increase in the part-time wages was due to just an increase in wages?
No, Pete, we actually, in there's $9,600 increase to add a 16-week grounds person. One person, 16 weeks.
That's right.
So that way there, we have another body to assist with what we need for the summer. Just 16 weeks though. And it's a big chunk, it's $9,600.
Now, I thought your workload was less when we bought that paint stripe machine.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a little less, but it's still an operational thing that takes a body to go and run the thing. And what we found is, if you're at a high school, like the high school campus, it works out perfect. Or you're at the middle school campus, it works out perfect, because you can do your mowing, you can do your trimming, you can do whatever you're doing, and you can run the machine. It works out winner chicken dinner. But if you're going to be over at Surratt and you got four fields over there to mow, it kind of doesn't flow as smoothly as we would like it to roll, but so it takes a little bit more.
Okay. Anybody else?
But I'll tell you though, I do believe it's a pretty good little machine. Felix is his name. He's very finicky. It's probably more user error than Felix, but
Pilot error?
pilot error. Yeah, yes, sir.
Anything else for Rick? Okay, Rick, thanks. That'll
Thank
do
you.
it. Let's have Diane. Oh, she's been here patiently waiting.
Oh, I have a general follow-up question. It kind of includes Rick and Chief. We had, during budget presentation, you guys had mentioned the CPR training, and we mentioned probably cost for like a town CPR training. Is there any update on that, or have you had a chance to look at
I
it?
honestly haven't even
Okay.
approached them.
No problem. That's just in my notes here, so.
Now, has he checked with you on lighting over there?
That'll be 2,500.
On,
Lighting
How much you gonna do?
at Parks and Rec?
no.
What's that lighting? You're using this old,
I'll follow up.
yeah. How are you, Diane?
I have laryngitis.
Oh, no.
That might be a
purpose.
blessing. Danielle might have to interpret.
Too much hooting and hollering at your awards?
I know, I am a party animal, so, I mean,
Where's that right?
tab 7.
Thank you.
Okay.
I had a question on this one, but I must have answered it. On this one, but that was the increases based on performance and a 3% market adjustment. I think that was answered here.
What? We can take 300 off that line? Is that what that was?
Deal done.
Okay, great. So what's the deal? I don't know. What's the deal?
He's at an auction.
Who's giving him a deal?
2,500 off of his budget for mine.
No. Actually, you could if you wanted to take $300 out of that. Yeah,
Okay,
training
for the
with
CPR?
Employee development, is that what it is?
Yeah, the CPR training?
Rebuild.
I'll find where you have it.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we're good.
Got that, Danielle?
Are we doing motions at the end? Because I had a question about the other one.
Sure, we can.
Okay. Just want to make sure. I
That
didn't
was
miss
a voluntary reduction, I'd just like to point out for the record.
Encourage.
Anybody got any questions for Diane?
I do not.
No.
We already took care of the 5% cut right off the top of that, right? I think you're all set, Diane.
Awesome.
That was easy.
Thank you. I know.
I didn't have to translate anything.
laryngitis.
Well, I got that question answered, so I.
Because I have the lucky pencil, everybody.
Yeah, it's your turn.
He didn't move, he thought we wouldn't see him.
Good evening.
Highway, highway.
5.
Ah, damn it.
5, Mark.
Yep.
Listen, these binders suck. Okay.
I'll ask the same question on the overtime pay. It's $1,000 increase, but since I asked the chief about calculation, how are you figuring that one? Sorry, it's the third line down, 41,300.
Oh, on cemetery?
Yes.
I
which
honestly
one?
don't have laryngitis yet. Let's see if I can make it. That was an increase based on actuals
Okay.
from this year.
Where you at?
Page 13 of 26,
Oh, yeah.
and I was on line 41,300.
Cemetery overtime.
Yep.
Did we already overspend this year?
Yep.
Where? Yeah.
That's kind of a weird thing anyway, if it's on the weekends and stuff, people have to come in.
It is, and if it's a full burial versus a cremation maybe, takes another person usually to do a full burial at least.
And then for highway, you think you'll be close this year?
I think so.
I know it's really
And that one for us is tough because it's so weather dependent. We've had knock on wood, a great fall so far. We might get our first event this week, but if we have a rough, December, that can blow out my whole 22 budget, and, you know, knowing that, I would have maybe changed some things for 23, but we do the best we can as far as kind of historical.
Our shed full right now, salt?
We're pretty close to full. I don't know if we're completely topped off, but we'll have some deliveries for sure before the end of the year. You know,
Yeah,
just
but I
about
see
after
you got-
every storm we.
You still got $20,000 in there.
Yep.
Has the cost of salt increased?
It has. Let's see. It was $72 last year. It's $79.22 right now. So that number that you see there, the 237,660 on the salt line on page 14. Reflects kind of a rolling yearly average of salt consumption with the new rates. The change was not much based on tonnage, but basically that new rate is what is reflected there.
And then, I'm kind of jumping around, I'm on page 14 of 26. Street sweeping, line 45, 275.
So that one, is one of those lines that's a little bit tough with the cutoff for the first budget book round. We've since had a second round of sweeping prior to the regatta in the village. Per our MS4, I don't remember if I mentioned this the other night, but per our stormwater permit, we're required to sweep twice a year now. We're trying to ease into that. I don't really see the point in putting brooms down on the entire MS4 area twice a year, especially when a lot of it is not curbed. So the curbed is what holds in that sediment. So if you can catch that before it gets to a catch basin, that's great. The MS4 permit would have us sweeping every street regardless of curb or not, and we're trying to sort of get to the intent of that without 100% compliance, if that makes sense.
So you think the year-to-date plus the encumbered, that 17,500 is good for next year?
I
Or
think
will it
so.
be more?
So if we were to say without fail, we're gonna sweep every section twice, I'd have to increase it a little bit more, but I'm comfortable where it is, that we can accomplish the job and do a patrol prior to that second sweeping again, make sure it's just the trouble spots.
On your consulting, 45,030, you budgeted 96,688. You spent 42, but you have 30,000 in encumbrances?
We did, so that one, let's see, so that was a 2022 increase based on the catch basin cleaning contract with, we have Belmore. Last year it was Triton Stormwater, but this year it's at Belmore. So that 30,000 is the Belmore contract amount. They hadn't started, when this was created, they hadn't started yet on our, they actually just started in October. That line also encompasses our drug and alcohol program testing and the maintenance of our consortium admin, roadside mowing, any engineering consultants for one-off non-road type things, stormwater quality sampling, our annual dam permit for the Uncanunic Dam, as well as our DigSafe program. So when we owe $1 a ticket for every DigSafe that's called in, that's what we pay that out of as well.
Peter, if I could.
Go ahead, Claus.
Adam, on page 14, 45,285, this is a guardrail repair, is that reflective of steel cost?
It is in actuals. I had a note to self here, bad driving epidemic. I think everybody might have seen this in their own lives as well at work, but we've certainly seen a lot more accidents around town, and unfortunately guardrail is one of the items that's not covered under our town's insurance policy, so we end up paying for that. If that can be clawed back from the, if it's a hit and run, we're kind of out of luck, but if we have the driver info, we can usually try to get that back, but I don't see it, of course. It just comes in a general fund revenue.
Thank you.
But yes, costs are definitely have increased for the actual materials as well.
Can I ask a revenue question?
Go ahead.
So Adam, you have your projected revenue on here, on the first page of your presentation.
Oh, okay.
And we had discussed upping the non-resident dump fees and the hazardous waste timeline and fees as well.
Yes.
Do you have any thoughts on how that might impact revenues for next year?
So we did talk about this the other day at our department head meeting. We would like to make some good adjustments on the solid waste fees this year for sure. On the household hazardous waste, which for us the biggest, right now, the biggest lopsided piece is how much we pay to get that removed from site quarterly versus what we're bringing in, because of usually it's coming in pretty large volumes, especially from out of town. So if the goal, if the select board would like to continue offering it to out-of-towners, I would say we'd want to increase that revenue probably in the ballpark of like 10 to 15, maybe 20,000 total for the year, and that will offset probably the non-resident portion of the increased cost now of removals. Because like everything else, you pay a certain amount to get them there, and then it's quantity based after that.
So would that actually be a revenue?
So we could increase revenues if the board just strictly wants to look at our fee schedule for non-resident, certainly for hazardous waste, and increase that. That's kind of the magnitude. We're talking 15 to 20,000. If we're going to offset, we can't make money on it, but to offset what it's costing us to get rid of. If the board would like to scale back the program and only offer to residents, then I'd see a little bit of a tiny bit of reduction in the revenues, but I'd see a larger reduction on the cost of household hazardous waste disposal from the appropriation side too. So two ways to kind of get at that same number.
We'll schedule that for sometime in December to talk about that.
Okay.
And then Adam,
Under new
We'd
business.
have to have hearings for that too, wouldn't we?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, but I'm just saying, let's get started on it, get moving.
Yep.
the fees for resident disposal, has our cost per vendor, per all the inflation that we've seen, does that need to be looked at as well? Or are we even
Because of
that
our solid waste tipping fee increase, which is an annual per contract, it's a couple percentage points, and then this year it defaulted to the CPI for that sector. We will have to increase our rates anyway across the board to kind of match, the way the prices have gone. So, the 5 cents a pound for residential trash versus 7 for commercial. And then the amount of construction and demo has gone up, but also the cost of disposal per ton of that has gone up as well. So pretty much every piece of solid waste has been more expensive. So just about all my fees on that end really are going to have to track up. So
we should look at the whole fee schedule for DPW?
yes, for sure.
Great. And then, I can wait, that's a side.
Go ahead.
Well, I had the detail cost for PD. I know Chief was dealing with something right
Okay,
now,
well, we can get that in a minute.
but can we add that also?
Sure.
Yeah, you're fine.
Where do we stand on the solar project? Have we made a decision on that yet?
So the last guidance I received from you must have been when I was prepping my capital improvement plan for presentation. I asked if the board wanted me to keep the whole project cost as if we purchased everything outright in CIP, or budget it for one of the lesser options, which would be there's probably more than two others, but the two other main options would be a power purchase agreement for the life of the solar panels, which would be basically nothing out of pocket other than any adjustments that need to be made structurally to the roof to be able to support the new panels. And then the second option was a power purchase agreement with a buyout option. So after the full depreciation of the panels, that in the 6th year, the town could purchase at a reduced cost the panels, and we would own them from year 6 to the end of their life. And and that would be about 135,000, I think, off the top of my head was the buyout price. So there are kind of those three options. I had asked if the board wanted the full price in CIP, and figuring if we needed to, it could scale down.
Did you put something in CIP?
So CIP had the full.
For what year?
It was for, I had actually put it out a couple years, and CIP moved it forward because they were trying to level out some of the humps. So they moved the full project cost, which was 400,000, into 2023. So that 400 is roughly 300 for a purchase of panels, and then 100 for structural improvements to the roof. But I haven't had any. It was kind of fast-tracked on me, so I haven't had any kind of structural analysis of the roof to say, yes, you would even need anything, no, you would not. You know, that's something that if we didn't need it as part of the project, I suppose could lapse, but.
We probably need to take a look at that. I'm not sure I agree with it, doing it right off the bat like that. You know, next year, the way things are, dumping another $300,000-400,000 onto the bottom line is where we should be on a not a necessity at this time. But that's my own opinion. We'll take a look at that.
Is a repair of the roof necessary right away, regardless of the solar panels?
So immediately, no. It would be more of a before any. It's certainly for the investment option, and before any investor wants to throw anything up that they're going to own, they want to make sure the roof can handle it, and that's not going to have to be torn off in 5 years to replace the roof or something. So somewhere in there, we'd have to have if the board wanted.
Before we go on with the project, you should know how much it's going to cost.
Right.
If it needs, if it needs $100,000 worth of roof repairs or something, we have no idea. You know, I think before we go on with the project, we need to find all that out.
Yeah, I agree, Peter. I also agree it's a want more than it's a need, but so we need to balance that and weigh that out.
Okay.
You know, the one solar, Revision Solar is the one that kind of gave me a rough, you know, for budgeting purposes, I know the idea of what the project would cost. I don't have up to date, you know, with the new electricity prices, I'm sure they could do another run to say, hey, if you do this buy outright, this is how much you're going to save in electricity a year. I think at that point it was about $20,000 a year in, you know, what we are consuming already, versus the new rates may be a lesser amount. And then, of course,
But you still need to get a structural engineer to look at it.
I think at a minimum, somebody's going to have to say, yes, this is ready to go, or no, it's not.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Adam, the Revision Energy proposal that we have was from May 24th, 2022, based on the date on this.
Yep.
Have you gotten a confirmation from them that these numbers are still accurate? The
So
cost for the project as a whole?
I think we could probably assume that piece has gone up. The thing that's working in the other side of it, which I didn't want to muddy the waters too much, but as part of the Infrastructure Reinvestment Act, Inflation Reduction Act, sorry, IRA, acronym I couldn't remember what it stood for. So the Inflation Reduction Act that passed a couple months ago includes some new provisions that allow a government entity to take advantage of what would be tax savings for a business. So there actually, even though we don't pay taxes, there would be we could receive a credit in the equivalent amount as what a business would receive in a tax cut for a solar project.
Yeah, I
So
think
they're
we've got
trying
some more digging to do.
spur
on
on
this
more of
project.
these types of projects. So we actually are probably, if we wanted to buy it outright, we'd be paying less after the IRA is passed than we would have in May when it hadn't yet passed. So
Can we get updated numbers on that?
a lot of moving parts at the moment with it.
So can we get updated numbers from them? That would be great.
All right, fine. All right, go ahead, Jim.
On page 14, you probably explained this in great detail in the past, but I can't remember, but lines 60100 and 60120, resurfacing and sidewalk maintenance. Could you explain why you only spent $7,900 in 2020 and nothing on sidewalk maintenance? And
I can. So Danielle might have the actuals right now. Continental Paving is kind of notorious for, it must be nice to have some some room to go for months without six-figure bills being paid, but.
There was just a big bill in there tonight, I believe.
Yes, I think
Yeah,
it was
that's right.
about 400,000, so I think that line's just about gone now.
So work was done, it's just billing
They
thing,
kinda
okay,
wait
right, I
to go
remember, I
live,
remember that.
And then we usually have one right before the end of the books close out as well. And then sidewalk repairs, a couple things on that one. We've got a contract, we actually have money encumbered now with HTA for a study and conceptual plans because Mast Road is coming up on the resurfacing, the 10-year-ish resurfacing is due on Mast Road. We wanted to get some sidewalk improvements and curbing repairs done. Prior to that, we wanted to make sure that we are not just fixing sidewalk if it's not in the right spot. So we've got some areas basically from the town line at Pinard Street we've got a couple spots, and then at the Rochambeau College intersection, we're having them take a look at that one as well. So if we need to make any sidewalk adjustments or curbing adjustments, tip downs, that sort of thing, we'll know before we spend that money to have the curb adjusted. The other piece of that is the curbing industry in the state is pretty narrow. There's only like 2 companies, I think, that are doing it right now. So we couldn't get ahead of, with the goal last year when we budgeted was to get the sidewalk adjustments made and the tip downs. There's probably 20 or 30 at least intersections along Mast Road that aren't ADA compliant right now. They don't have the detectable panels, they don't have the proper tip downs. So we wanted to get those ahead of time. We haven't been able to get that done. So probably what's going to have to happen is once the results of the study come back, we'll be able to pinpoint exactly how much to tie up with tri-state curbing, and they're going to have to do those repairs in the spring, hopefully before we do Mast Road layout. So we'll be encumbering some money there, but also spending some this year.
Okay, thank you.
So you have 90,000 which you haven't touched.
Just, right, it's just encumbered at the moment. I don't think we've spent anything out of that line.
Okay, do you intend on encumbering that 90,000?
I don't think it's going to be a full encumbrance. HTA, I think, you know, we're talking probably in the 30-something thousand range, and then Tri-State, we won't have, I mean, I probably could wrap it all up, but I just don't think.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna do that in the
We'll
next
have-
6 weeks.
We'll have some, you know, from next year's budget when we're in Pinardville working on the sidewalk.
So you won't be encumbering that, so you'll be starting off with 90,000 instead of, you're not gonna have like 180,000.
Correct.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
Question, Peter?
Go ahead, Mark.
So, at DPW, where the new fields are out back, I know we have a long-range extended plan for those fields. What are the possibilities of, will we use all of those fields ever? Or can we take one of those fields and make that into a complete solar field? Instead of putting solar panels on the roof, put them on the fields where we might be better off using the field as the solar to increase the size, capacity. Is that something that you guys had talked about?
A little. That may be a better question for Rick, if he's still here.
Yep.
We had talked a little bit about the possibility of shifting, fast-tracking the development of the fields behind DPW in order to use some of the former landfill cap as a solar field, and removing some of the athletic field use there, but that changes his operations, and that's not really my, you know.
You're talking about
my
in
decision to make.
Penonville, putting the solar farm in Penonville.
Potentially.
That was approached, we were approached with that a
Yeah.
few years ago,
I was specifically thinking right now,
behind DPW.
behind DPW, where I know we have a layout of all the fields should be here, there, and there. Will those fields ever come to fruition at some point in time, Rick, or,
I certainly would hope so.
okay.
And there's not
But
much.
probably in my lifetime, I don't know.
We may
I
not,
mean, it took 10 years to get all we got, so you're gonna be 60, so I'll be 70, I don't know. I don't know. You
so,
do
so
the
I guess,
numbers.
I guess the question I'm asking is, would one of those fields, if we took one of the fields away and turned it into a solar field, instead of putting solar panels on the building and going through all that stuff there, use the land that we already have available to set it up and put it there.
That's a big difference from having a solar farm and having solar panels on your
Yeah, I understand, but I mean, it still can generate money for the town, Peter, it can.
you'd have to sell it to the grid, and then the grid would give you credit for it, usually how
And
that
then we could,
works.
you know, I mean, we could still, you know, we could
Yeah.
electrify the whole DPW plant. I mean, it's just a, you know, a thought down the road, you know, I mean,
I think in fairness to both Adam and Rick, that'd be more of a political decision than a
Yeah.
department head decision. That'd be the board's decision, and you would wanna consult with the Parks and Recs Commission on how that would impact their master plan.
Can I ask a, good.
Adam, on the street lighting, are there other areas in town where we might be able to do the conversion to LED like we did before? Have you looked at other areas?
There's a few onesie-twosie outdoor lights at some of the
No, but there's no,
facilities, but we've done
Oh,
every town-owned street light.
Okay.
Want to make sure.
'cause that was a great project.
No, I think we did the whole thing, didn't we?
We did, there,
There's a handful, I know there's a couple in our back parking
Yeah.
lot,
Yeah,
there's
no,
a couple.
I'm not looking for onesies too, I didn't know if there's
Parking lot
specific
lights.
areas in town where,
No, the only reason I was thinking about it was I think the only other place where that might not have been converted were a couple of the intersections, because those aren't, they're metered lights, they're not on the outdoor lighting plan, so they might not have popped up, but everything else is done, so, you know, 99% of the town's done.
You okay?
I'm fine. Which we won't use them anymore.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna go through CIP.
Yeah.
Do you need to leave? Okay, he's good.
Okay.
Anything, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I don't know if this is relates to Adam in particular, but every morning I go by right across from the library, and there's a vacant house there that's, I guess, the town
We own that
purchased.
house.
I know, and I'm thinking, can't we do something to make money with that, or I understand it was there at one point, they were gonna reconfigure the area, but is that, I mean, it's an eyesore, and it's not generating any money as far as
We were supposed to tear that down.
How many
So there
years
were
did we
money
spend?
either last, I think it was in 2019, there was money to demo it, but we did not do that. I'd be happy to, with some of the savings and some of my salary lines, bring an RFP quickly before you, or some cost to demo it. I know when Adam was in this chair, he did meet with Main Street about potentially using it to provide them some space, but also generate a little bit of revenue. It's a 100-year-old house with block foundation. It would need a pretty good investment before you would generate revenue from it.
but that was one piece of a bigger plan to look at reconfiguring that perhaps as a roundabout.
I think there was an opportunity to grab it, and the board sees that.
Yeah, the price was right at the
So
time.
maybe now we'd tear it down, clean it up a little bit, have some parking in there temporarily, for a while. Until something else develops.
yeah, I just, it doesn't make sense to
Yeah.
have that eyesore sitting
No, I
there
agree.
and everything, and,
Trying to remember, what was it in the couple years we took it, it got taken out, it was what, $50,000?
That's
No, I think it was much less, because we did all the work to go through and check on lead and asbestos, so we have all those reports. There is some asbestos in it that would,
I thought it was like 25 or something.
Yep, I think it
Oh,
was-
maybe,
Yep.
yeah.
Isn't that what it was, 25?
Sounds right.
Yeah. All right, good. All right, let's start on CIP real quick. Has anybody got any other questions? The first page is town vehicles. Have we increased our fleet by any? Have you increased yours
That's a good
with any of those cars?
No, right now, we still have one, we've done one in, one out with the police cruisers the last few years. We do still have one to sell. We were waiting for the other issue with the last auction to
Yeah, I remember that issue.
settle out before we put the last one out for auction.
Yeah.
That's it, that'll be the last thing out.
So we talked about the first lines, the police cars and how we're gonna handle that, right, Danielle?
And I had a motion on that one.
Huh?
You made a motion
You
on
made
that
a
one.
motion and a vote on that one.
What's scary about this is we keep putting, like we put you bumped it by 2,000 for next year. Hopefully, it doesn't go like it did this time where it went up like 8,000. On utility twos, Ford F-350 pickup, that's gonna go away, is that correct? We're not increasing the fleet, right?
Right.
Okay, I don't think so. I'm on Public Works, you guys? Kelly?
No, I'm good.
Adam, the 544J, is that a loader backhoe?
That one's just a loader, bucket loader.
Okay. And you're replacing, is that a replacement?
Yes.
And you'll be setting up, the other one you'll be sending out for auction or? Same thing with the Freightliner, that's gonna go away?
Yes.
Live floor went up that much, 45,000? You had one in this year's budget for 110, and now you've got it in there for 155 for a 100-yard.
They did, so you, trying to think when we awarded that. We bought it, we
That was
purchased the
last meeting or the meeting
so
before?
it wasn't too long ago. We purchased one last year, which was about that 110, so that's what we budgeted for 22s, because we have half a dozen of these, so we kind of cycle through. So we had set the budget for 22 based on last year's purchase, yeah, and it was 142.5 or something like that, I think was the bid price this year, so it's gone up quite a bit, had gone up quite a bit as of this summer, so just based on the fact that we're still in that realm, I increased a little from the bid price of this year for next year's purchase, but
It's just like 3 years in a row you bought one?
I believe this would be 3, yep. I'd have to look at the CIP, but
You can't get another year out of it?
sounds right. So the problem with the roll-off trailer, or the flat floor trailers rather, is we seem to be in a cycle where our last one to go, our oldest, is like right on the cusp of being roadworthy and inspectable, so could we? I mean, we can do anything, but I think we're gonna start to feel it, and unfortunately, as soon as we take one of those offline for any period of time and have the whole operation gets crunched because you have fewer trailers that can be hooked up to the wall when you're transporting another. And so it's pretty critical we keep those going. So I hesitate to extend that cycle.
Because you got another one out for next year also.
Right.
Anybody, questions?
So we have two F-350s. We have a pickup and
Where you at?
dump. There's one for fire, is the pickup, and then the 350 for Parks and Rec is the dump.
Okay. We all set on this page? Got 1.6 road plan.
Oh, sorry, I was still on page 3. Are those different vehicles? Sorry, on
Parks and
page
Rec
3.
What page you on?
Page
3. Under Parks and Rec. So there's one for fire, the F-350.
Right.
But it says pickup, and this one says F-350 dump.
Yeah, that's a little dump truck he wants over there.
So
Is it
that's what I was
just a
asking,
different
are they
body
the same?
style?
Yep.
Okay.
It's the same chassis, just a different, one's got
I just
pickup.
want to confirm, because they're both on for the same price, so I didn't know if that was still accurate.
Rick, can you explain that?
What am I doing?
Well, you got your Parks and Rec,
$82,000 truck, F-350 dump body.
okay, but
So it's going up $13,000?
Just got current
it's in here at
pricing.
$70,000.
Excuse me?
Go ahead.
Sorry, it's in the CIP matrix as how it was proposed, but it's in the budget under the CIP line under the updated figure that Rick got for the quote.
So as the police chief came into you to report that the cruisers were going up, and as we were seeing prices with Adam, I asked all department heads, update your vehicles and any other CIP, because the CIP is put together in March and April.
Right.
So that's why you're seeing a difference there.
So it's not 70,000, it's how much?
82,
82?
yes. That's with the dump body too.
Sounds awful cheap. Isn't it, Adam?
Cross your fingers, hope to die.
Well,
No, Pete, I just called and got a estimate of what it's going, what that vehicle's going for right at this very moment. And it's right around, what'd they say, 60, 62, 65,000. And then you got another 17,000 for a dump body.
right.
You know what I mean? For an aluminum dump body, so.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
All right.
I'm hoping it's the right number.
Yeah, me too.
Who knows?
And the fire one is still settled at 70,000?
Yeah, because he's gonna have to put equipment into it, right? You have to put this lights and siren and all that stuff.
So are we talking 85? Is it 15,000 also to upfit that?
No, he specifically said it would not.
Okay.
Because the truck doesn't cost that much. Just So we're gonna take a look at the 400,000 on the garage roof repair and rooftop solar. we're gonna revisit that. Is that okay, Derek?
Yes.
Well, it's going back to Kelly's question real quick. Was CIP has $500,000 in Grassmere Town Hall. But it doesn't look like we're gonna do that project next year, does it?
So again, that's a capital reserve fund that is, the agents to expend from that would be the select board and HDC. If they were to be successful in securing a grant, we would do that under unanticipated revenues, or potentially it would go into the 2024 budget. So this LCHIP, the LCHIP cycle starts in May, and that's usually awarded in November.
So why do we leave that 500,000 this year?
So that is to show the CIP committee. The CIP committee is a planning committee, so it remains in the matrix to show that it's still an active project, that HCC is still working on it. However, it's not, it doesn't move over to the budget.
Okay, so should we move that up to 24? Just so it doesn't show up on here?
It wouldn't be appropriate to move it out of there, because again, that's a planning document approved by the planning board. But yeah, if you wanted to make a note next to it that
It's not gonna happen. Chances are that happening, the elevator being done, getting approved and all that by next year, it probably isn't gonna happen that quick. No.
It would not under an appropriation approved at town meeting. However, there are other ways that it could happen, but it's not likely, no. But
Right.
we're not asking to have it included in the operating budget.
But the negative underneath it, the minus,
Cancels,
okay.
yep. Again, that's because there's approximately $375,000 in the capital reserve fund and the difference, so.
Well, just when you see this document, everybody says, well, it's in CIP, when it's really, not really in CIP. It's in CIP as a placeholder, I guess.
Yes, yep.
We have the library, they have their, but they have an offsetting revenue there. Anything else? That's the school projects. Cal, you got anything?
Nope.
All right, so there's a couple of motions we need to take. Is that correct? Oh, we already did one,
Yes, you
Yes.
did on the,
on the 45,000.
yep.
Danielle, what are the motions you need?
There was discussion about reducing the EMS fund physical examination line by $2,500. It's the line ending in 44330. That would also reduce the revenue line for that fund as well. So that would be a net impact on both sides,
And because it's in the EMS fund, it would not have an impact
on the operating
on the
budget.
on the operating budget, because we would do the appropriation article for that.
I'll make that motion to reduce the physical line by $2,500.
I'll second it.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Collis. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
Wait, sorry, can I ask a clarifying question? Was it 2,500 or 2,000?
2,500.
2,500.
2,500, it was 500
okay.
times 5 employees.
Anything else?
The other one that was noted was $300 from Parks and Recreation Employee Development line, ending in 44300. That was for a reduction in CPR training.
That's your baby.
Sure, I'll make that motion.
Yep, second.
Motion by Kelly, seconded by Mark. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Good.
They're still getting the training, just at a better price.
Anything else?
So I saw there were a few questions, but those were the only ones needing motions that were specific line items.
Okay, what's your questions?
No, you
Oh.
said to get some more information on the solar
Yeah.
for discussion.
Well, we need to find out the structural situation
Right.
before we decide on,
Yeah,
we're
and
gonna have to spend
household hazardous
$100,000.
waste as well.
Yeah, I'd
Right.
like to look at the fee schedule, the
Right.
cost for household hazardous waste, the fee schedule for the transfer station as a whole, and then the patrol, the detail fees that we're charging, so all of our fees.
Now, I know normally you do that in the spring, you'd request doing it in December. I know there's limited meetings in December just because of the schedule that's adjusted, but we can get that drafted. It just wouldn't impact the budget specifically if it's in December at the select board level.
you mean, yeah, you're
Right.
talking
It's
about
just
the budget
making note that
presentation.
we,
Right.
yeah, we need
I'm
to
just making
do-
It'll affect the revenues during the year.
Right, yes,
Yeah.
yep, which could then have an impact later on in the year.
Anything else? You have anything? We have a non-public?
We don't, I guess my question would be to the board, how do you want to proceed?
When do we have to submit our budget to the budget committee?
The budget committee is reviewing the budget on the 29th, Tuesday the 29th. So there's, I believe we only have one currently scheduled meeting.
Right now, we
between now and
had,
then.
you could meet on the 21st. Ultimately, if you made a decision to meet other meetings as well, you could. Again, you have Monday. the
Our regular
20th.
schedule would be the 28th, wouldn't it?
No, I think that's.
I
the
think,
fourth.
I think, yes, you would, normally it would be on the fourth Monday, but I think when you and I conferred earlier, we said we were gonna meet tonight, possibly if the budget didn't get done on the 21st, and then skip the 28th, that way we would have sufficient time for department heads to update the budget books for the budget committee, and then meet with the budget committee the following Tuesday, but it's really your pleasure however you'd like to meet. If you'd like to meet that Tuesday, we can.
I think it's dependent on if Adam can get us updated numbers for that.
I would say we just meet the 28th. Put a final number to it.
We can do that.
Can we do that?
We can, it definitely doesn't leave us much time to update the information. We can make it happen.
Not gonna
It's
be a lot
also
more
right
to
after
update,
the.
is there?
It's right after the Thanksgiving holiday as well, so we'd need to close the packet information by like Tuesday, so we can have a packet to you Wednesday, the 23rd.
That works. That okay with you guys?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like there's a lot to update, so yeah. it
I don't know,
should be-
the holiday week, let's take the holiday week, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Take it up. Adam?
I know Derek and Danielle will fall on this sword, but that is quite a bit of work to finalize Monday and then have it ready for Tuesday. Because even if it's like, 5 changes, all the budget books have to get reprinted, and reassembled. It turns into quite a Santa's workshop type thing to get everything ready and make sure it's right.
Well, isn't there only one question, and that's the solar?
Well,
That's the only question.
Can I?
And the DPW, what?
Well, I wanted you to go through the process. Hopefully you would agree with the department heads. There's not a lot of fluff in the budget. There really isn't. You've gone through the lines, you've asked questions, but I did want to share this information with you to show how the continued use of fund balance, and if we were to kind of stop right now, where it would go to the budget committee. So this is, you've got a column on your left for general fund appropriation, your general fund revenues. So our general fund appropriation is increased annually by approximately just under 5%. Our revenues have increased by about 5%, but again, that's 5% on a much smaller number. And the use of fund balance has averaged an increase of almost 45% a year. Back in 2015, used 200,000, $500,000, and then this past year, 1.6. So when I asked the question earlier, what are we comparing to for a base? When we collected taxes this fall, we collected just over $16 million for the town. And that's partially because the board used $1.6 million in fund balance, both in articles approved at town meeting and both because of that. Right now, if you stopped where you were and didn't use any fund balance, you're just under needing to collect $19 million. So that's an additional $3 million that would need to be collected.
So I don't understand your question. You don't want us to use fund balance?
I think it's appropriate to use fund balance. I think the auditor has told us on one-time capital projects it's appropriate. It's appropriate to use it. The board has the ability to use it to reduce tax, when you set the tax rate. I think you need to be careful because what this has done is I think you're starting to see that tidal wave of every year using fund balance, you're hiding your increases. The budget continues to increase. So right now, you've got a difference of, you need an additional $3 million, but if you compare it against last year with no fund balance, it's not that big. So I guess, I don't want there to be a surprise when you get the tax rate setting next fall and the tax rate has gone up $2+. Because that's kind of where it is.
Well, what's it gonna be now if we don't use it?
That's what I'm saying. It'd be about $2, but then you're compounding the problem because the year after that number's bigger. It just,
We realize that. That's why we decided we used 100, right?
yep,
And then we used 750.
yep.
So I thought when we were talking about it, we were gonna try to decrease as we went along,
And you could absolutely do that, yep.
to try to ease the burden. But I don't think with the way the economy is now that we don't offset what we have the ability to do and still sit on 12.5% in an unreserved fund balance. It's gonna go one way or the other. You're not gonna keep increasing that unreserved fund balance. So we decided there was a level of 12% as a minimum, right, or 12.5.
Yep.
That we're
And,
comfortable with, yeah.
And that's where we came in, and we took those funds and used them.
Yeah.
I think that's appropriate. What do you do with that money? Just keep letting it grow and grow?
No, I'm not advocating for it to grow and grow, but there hasn't been any discussion on use of fund balance to this point.
For next year, you mean?
For next year, for
Right.
2023.
And you cross that bridge when we come to it. Who knows what our unanticipated revenues are gonna be? Our revenues could be up, they could be down, and you say we use nothing. That's just gonna happen. That's just part of budgeting.
Don't we typically do that after we get our budget back from the budget committee? Don't
Some
we
years
typically
you
do it
have.
Closer to.
Some years you
budget?
have, some years you have sent it over to the budget committee knowing that you're gonna put certain items out to. So, I mean, if you want to, we can discuss this more on the 28th, but if you wanted to send this budget forward to the budget committee, you could. However, I just want to show you, it does right now have a significant increase to the amount of property taxes that would have to be,
So the 750 we just used,
yes,
right, you're not talking about that, you're talking about next year.
next year. Yep.
So,
For instance, maybe like
Whether it's
we've
like-
seen a deposit into the capital reserve fund. I know there's only one scheduled, but that could be something to consider as a separate warrant article since it's already a separate warrant article.
250,000?
Yes.
I just wasn't sure if there was anything else like that that you wanted me to note to bring forward for next week's budget discussion
I don't think
for
so.
calculation.
I understand what you're saying, You're kicking the can down the road a little bit.
You're either kicking the can or by, if this budget were to pass, that increase is gonna get passed along to the taxpayers. And
So what are you saying? You want me to tell these guys to go back and cut their budget some more?
no, I
Oh,
don't,
just-
I just wanna, be transparent of this is kind of where you are right now. So, and I think the hard task we had from your last meeting was, we were sent to go look at our budgets, but for the most part, nobody has changed operations. There are some additional items in there, but there's not a whole lot of change to services.
But when somebody asks you a question, or somebody asks Ellie a question, she's got better answers now. You know, and I think that's important that we all, I hate to be honest, I hate the joint meetings with the budget committee because things like this don't get taken care of, or we can do one-on-one with each department head. I really don't like those joint meetings. I know it's convenient, but I like to get the one-on-one with the department head myself, like we did tonight. That's all I got to say about that.
So,
So,
Go ahead, Joe.
no, go ahead.
you said-
I'm still thinking, so go ahead.
So we partially, we did that 750 because of the general economy and the inflation that's killing everybody. That's part of the budgeting process, that the inflation could go down and everything, the issue that we were dealing with this year may not be there next year and might be easier in some ways, right? That's just the risk that we do. So it's not necessarily gonna be a crushing blow. It depends. Part of it's, you know.
And I want to be clear, our discussions about the use of fund balance has nothing to do with hiding anything. I heard the word hiding being used. That's
Absolutely not.
absolutely not what we're trying to do here.
We put 12% away,
Yeah.
you know, so what do you just do, let that fund grow? I'm asking now.
No, I
If
would
you don't
say, I
use
think
it, what-
12%, but
12% was the
the
minimum.
minimum.
And there was a target that you were indicating you were gonna be working towards over the next few
Yeah,
years,
right.
a little bit at a
Yeah.
time.
But I'm just saying, if you don't use that, you keep letting it grow, what do you do with it? Eventually, you've got to spend it.
Yep.
So it just determines on what you want to spend it on. You were going to say something, go ahead.
I have a list.
Huh?
I have the list.
Go for it.
So Derek, you're just trying to put this in perspective.
I'm trying to put in
For
perspective
us.
that right now, again, there's been no vote on use of fund balance.
Right.
Right now, with the votes that you've taken tonight, the amount of property taxes that would have to be raised is just over 19 million. That's a 17.3% increase from what was raised fall 2022. We are anticipating a growth of value because of the reval, but it's gonna be equivalent for almost everyone. So
Right.
really, you're talking almost a 17% potentially increase on the town
So
side.
how do you combat that?
Use of fund balance, and does the board wanna, does the board wanna cut any services? Does the board wanna make any changes? That's a question for you. I just don't wanna get into next fall and the tax rate's a surprise.
No, I don't think it's going to be a surprise. We've been saying that, we've talked about this before, we've been saying it for a while, that we got some tough times coming ahead.
Yeah, and I think the reality of it is we've analyzed this enough and made enough cuts that the only way to make any additional cuts in reality is to cut services. That's where we're at. I mean, plain and simple.
And I'm not
And
about to do
and
that.
that's what the people need to hear. You know, we can't go anymore without cutting some services. It's simple as that, the way I see it.
And cutting service means cutting personnel, cutting, I mean, it's just,
Yep,
and we're not looking to do that, we're actually adding personnel this year. You're adding one, he's got one he's adding. He's trying to add someone, he just can't find them. Rick wants one, part-timer. So I mean, that's, you know, when you start looking at where to cut, that's where you have to cut, unfortunately.
But I think too, when we're having conversations with budget committee, and this has been talked about in the school as well, is that Also, as a municipal organization, we're combating retention, turnover, wages, and supporting our staff with the actual workload, like balancing that. It's par for the course right now, and, you know, vehicles cost, everything costs more, so you're not wrong, I'm just saying this is the issue for the school and the town right now. But, something that I was gonna bring up, and I know we've talked about it before, is sending a letter to our new state representatives, requesting their support and advocating for funds for Goffstown, because the state does have quite a surplus this year, money of which will need to be expended, and I think we need to have better communication with our state reps about the impact that inadequacy in funding per student, in road aid, and bridge aid, and things like that have a huge impact on the tax rate as a whole for Goffstown. So we might be cutting taxes on meals and rooms, but that has a direct impact on our residents' backs. And I think we need to have more of a role in advocating for our residents through our state representatives. So I want to bring that up again, that I think we should do that.
I don't have a problem with that.
It's not going to solve anything now, but I think we should be, you know, have more of a hand in those conversations.
When's that start up again, Jim?
January.
January? Maybe we ought to ask them to come in on one of the meetings in January, invite them to a meeting and tell them where we're at.
That's fine with me.
Something we could do, right?
Yeah.
So do we have, so we talked about the use of unassigned fund balance. Do we have ideas for how much we're able to spend this year within our new proposed minimum?
We could talk to department heads and get an idea of what they anticipate they might lapse or go on and spend.
'Cause I think we
And give
could-
you a ballpark of what would be.
And that's what we would, I think that
We
would be.
would need to get that before we make the decision as to what we're gonna do, right?
I mean, I think we could say already, we would put the capital reserve fund for the apparatus. We could do that. We know how much that costs. But I don't know about anything more. I haven't really thought about it.
We still got some stuff coming up in the future too, so. All right, anything else?
So are we gonna push this forward then to the budget committee?
Or do you want to meet on the 28th?
I meet on the 28th, just to put a number to it.
Yeah.
It might be a quick meeting, but let's
Yeah.
just do it, say, I know it puts you guys under the gun, but
Are we having a meeting the 21st?
No,
No,
you
there's no
prefer
reason.
to,
Okay.
okay.
Yeah, I have no problem meeting the 28th, sure.
doesn't have to be a
What do you
very
think?
long
It might
meeting.
be short, but they,
So what do you think's gonna change between now and then? Why can't we push this forward to them now?
Yeah, you could, you just,
I'd rather get it to them now. That way if they have any issues, let them,
we're not gonna know anything, we're not gonna have some of the information like on the DPW solar.
to be honest with you, I don't think the solar is a big issue. If I had my way, I'd wipe the solar, I'd just wipe it right off out of the budget and not deal with it. Let's get the roof fixed. We still have electricity, we still have things to work with, solar. That's my feeling. Do away with it.
But in thinking forward,
Yeah.
if we gotta fix the roof and it's gotta be beefed up before you can do solar, wouldn't that be the time, even if you don't do the solar part, when you're fixing the roof, you still wanna make sure you bring it up to standards in case you do wanna do that? No?
No, I would fix the roof, make sure the roof is okay, and then bring the people in to do the study for the solar, and let them tell us what we need. We could overdo the roof or underdo the roof, and I mean, it just,
I mean,
I
they're two
bet you
separate,
Adam has something to input on.
they're two separate
this.
issues. I mean, the roof needs to be looked at. I agree,
Yeah.
that needs to be looked at
Yeah.
first.
fix the roof.
And then we can go forward, but I think I'm still in favor of pursuing solar. I mean, there's savings to be had there, I think. I don't know which,
If I could
Which
simplify
month?
your lives maybe a little bit on this particular item, I think by trying to help out, I think the CIP committee probably did this particular project a little bit of a disservice by bumping it up. My thought probably is that going forward, that some version of a power purchase agreement makes sense. it's less out of pocket, you don't realize the savings right off the bat, but you still might see some. I think it would be wise to pull this out of this year, just because CIP moved it up, doesn't mean it has to remain here, especially if we do a power purchase agreement where the out-of-pocket cost is fairly low, or zero if we do the full PPA. That makes budgeting process easier. You can kind of move that to the side immediately, move 400,000 out of the expense column. And then that gives me some time to get both new numbers and also find out if we have to pay.
Yeah, I have no
some
problem with
structural
that, because
engineering
that'll give us
for the
time to
garage.
answer the structural issue.
Right.
So we'll make that,
Is that a motion?
Collis made
Yeah,
that a
I'll make that
motion.
motion. Yeah.
I'll second it.
It was seconded by Mark.
Thanks.
So we're moving 400,000, you said?
Yeah. From the CIP
Yeah.
line.
And did we have an offsetting revenue with that?
I'm double checking here.
I don't think you could
Don't
have
believe
offset
we
revenue the
did,
first year.
but I'm just gonna confirm here.
From
It's the right
DPW
line.
revenues?
This one was.
You didn't budget any revenue, did you? No.
Nope.
We weren't sure on that one.
We
I think-
had, there was 200,000 as potential offsetting revenue, so we would reduce that as well.
So, yeah, we did. Yeah, we
Yes.
did throw that in with the revenues. I know that it was discussed at CIP, and I think
It was an estimated,
it was an estimated potential.
Revenues
One
from
year of
the,
200,000?
from the array itself?
That
that's
doesn't,
what I'm seeing on the CIP matrix. Let me check the
Yeah, that doesn't
budget
sound
line
right.
specifically.
unless you had some grant funding that was coming in, or
Maybe the credits that I was referring to?
$200,000, you wouldn't have it in the first year.
To be perfectly honest, I wasn't at CIP this year, but I will definitely track down
I
the,
think it was the way
Here we
CIP
go.
talked about it, was half of it would be
I'm just
whether you did a
making
PPA. So that might be on the matrix, but if it's in
I
the
think it's in the
budget.
matrix, but I don't
But it's
see it
not
in the budget.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
what it
I
was.
think I just,
Okay.
yeah, I only see it on the one side,
Okay.
but I will confirm.
So I can also say, in the interest of the amount of work that you guys have to do to get updated actuals anyways in our budget lines, is that the school board did that and then gave us a one sheet of anything that changed. So could we potentially
Oh,
have
absolutely.
them do that, so there's less work?
There's not much to
Just
be changed.
do a one sheeter if we decide to move anything, just so it gives more time.
Yeah, I've been keeping track as we've been going this evening.
Anything else?
Yeah, we didn't vote.
We
On-
took, all in favor?
You
Oh, yeah.
seconded
Collis
it.
made
There you
it.
go, yeah.
Good call, Jim. Any further discussion on the solar? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
Details.
Do we have to vote on Crispin's house now?
You can vote to have that as, move forward as a special article.
Make the motion to move Crispin's house forward in the budget for a special article,
20,000?
20,000.
I second that.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Collis, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, seeing none, motion passes. Motion?
Well, we have,
You have the action matrix
Oh, yeah.
in your packet.
So we won't move the budget forward till when?
28.
20th.
We have a meeting on the 28th.
Okay.
So, on the action matrix, well, actually, new, we're gonna review the fees.
Great. Yep. I know the new building inspector is reviewing ours, because he did comment that many of ours are too low and out of date, so he's.
Oh, really?
Yep. So he's working on that, so we'll bring that forward along with DPW.
Excellent.
and the
MPD.
PD.
And PD special detail, their revolving fund, yep.
There's nothing else on the other stuff?
No, you made your change to the ad hoc charter, so
Yep.
we'll be trying to schedule a meeting that dovetails in with budget committee and all the other meetings.
Motion to adjourn.
No, no, is there anybody here for public input? Seeing none?
I'm so proud of you. Motion to adjourn.
Yep.
Motion by Kelly,
Second.
by Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.